while Clovis's baptism is mostly seen as the foundational moment of France, it was also a monumental turning point in favor of the Roman Catholic Church. It led to the first mass conversions to Catholic Christianity among the barbarians. Secondly, it gave the Roman Catholic Church a much-needed ally. And finally, it helped to establish a European political counterweight to the Byzantine Empire. So, while Clovis's background was extremely pagan, and the region's background was very violent, Clovis's wife managed to put into motion the events that needed to happen for one of the first mass conversions and baptisms to occur. So with the Roman Empire, the Western Roman Empire collapsing, according to Roman law, Rome did not actually fall, but the authority and governing rule was handed over to the Eastern Roman Emperor Zeno. But with all the chaos going on, it was impossible for Zeno to actually take pragmatic authority in the region. And so this led to a rise of rump states among Gaul and the other regions. Some of these include the kingdom of the Socians, the Ostrogoths, and the Salian Franks. And the leader of the Ostrogoths was Odoacer, who was a ruler, and he tried to gain a legitimacy of being a Roman emperor by actually not being a Roman emperor, but puppeting Julius Nepos. But he was killed. But Nepos was killed in 480, and he didn't gain the approval of Emperor Zeno in the east, so that plan fell through. The kingdom of the Socians was very interesting as it was a kingdom set up by Roman legions, but since they didn't have any higher authority, they just set up their own kingdom. And finally, the Salian Franks was governed by and started by Merovic in 415 and Merovic ruled until 458, where he handed over the reins to Childeric, and he made the Salian Frank Federation, or Federarchy, and he fought against Odoacer and pushed him out of the region. And he had 4 children, and one of them was Clovis, who gained power after his father's death. And he absolutely dominated his neighbors and actually rebelled against the remnants of Roman authority over him, and becoming a truly independent Frankish federation that was free. And so, with Clovis now king, he wanted to send men to find another wife for him. And after searching throughout the countryside, they found Clotilde, or Clotilde, who was a Christian nun in Burgundy. And she was a nun because she was exiled by her father during a power grab, and Burgundy sent her to Clovis immediately out of fear of Clovis's army and such. And so they got married, and Clotilde continued, because she was a Christian nun, tried to convert Clovis, but it wasn't really happening, and Clovis wasn't converting. But Clotilde continued to insist that after they had a son together, that he be baptized. And so Clotilde set up a very flamboyant and just grand baptismal service, but it didn't help, and especially after when they baptized their son, that he died of seizures, like completely removed from the actual baptism. But like nonetheless, it did not help from like Clovis's conversion at all. And then like a few years later, there was a battle with the Alemanni, and Clovis was losing pretty badly, and so he cried out for help, like starting by addressing God as the God that Clotilde claims to be the right God. And he says, quote, "I beg your aid with the vow that if you grant me victory over my enemies, and I know that power which he says that people dedicate to your name have had from you, I will believe in you and be baptized in your name." And so basically immediately after this, the tides of the battle were reversed, and Clovis won the battle. And this helped, and this was the first mass conversion where after he won the battle, he himself was baptized along with 3,000 men from his army. So secondly, with the conversion of Clovis and his baptism, it gave enough power to Trinitarian Catholics to push Arianized barbarians out of Gaul, and therefore pushing the Arian heresy out of the center of political power. And so like this kind, like we don't normally think, but like Arian missionaries actually converted a lot of barbarians after the Council of Nicaea, because like after the Council of Nicaea, it's like they became kind of ostracized in Roman society, so the Arians started to send missionaries to barbarians, but they weren't like ostracized so much because like Constantine himself was like baptized by an Arian bishop like at his death. So like the Arians still had a lot of power, and like missionaries gaining a lot of power by converting barbarians to Arianism wasn't helping the Trinitarian Catholics. And the Arian missionaries converted a lot of Germanic tribes, the Goths, the Lombards, and the Vandals. So a lot of barbaric tribes were in Arian control. And as Gregory of Tours says, quote, now, like after Clovis had converted, and he like to Trinitarian Catholicism, and seeing all these Arian barbarian tribes around, like it was very hard on him, as Gregory of Tours says, quote, "Now Clovis said to his people, quote, I take it very hard that these Arians hold part of the Gauls. Let us go with God's help and conquer them." And so he proclaimed a holy war on the Arian barbarians, and he devoted the land to be conquered to be an offering to St. Martin, forbidding any looting, and only allowing for people to take grass for fodder and water. But when one soldier took hay with violence from a poor man, with the soldier arguing that hay was grass, so therefore he can take grass, when Clovis heard about it, he wasn't happy, and he came over to him and he chopped off his head, and this act prevented the army from plundering the country. And so with these acts, Clovis was able to push Arianism closer to its defeat and demise, and permanently turning the tables in the Catholics' favor. So finally, with Clovis being king, that demands ultimate respect, and being crowned consul, it established a political counterweight to the Byzantine Empire. So, like, Clovis, like, a lot of his power came from his just, like, charisma and just personality of, like, demanding ultimate respect. Like, one time there was a soldier who carried away from a church lots of valuables, but in particular there was this remarkably large and beautiful vase. And the bishop from the church asked Clovis, if anything can be returned, it should be that vase. And so Clovis said, like, if you want have it returned, come to Sissons, where if the lots are in our favor and it is given and the vase is given to me, I'll give it back to you. And so the king brought the situation about the vase to the army, and everyone agreed to do what the king would do, except this one guy who like smashed the vase, and like everyone was completely astonished and horrified at a knight or warrior who would do this. And as it happened, the broken vase was actually allotted to Clovis, and he actually returned it to the church. But Clovis had very secret anger towards this one soldier because of, the super disrespectful thing that he did. And so 1 year later, he summoned all his troops and starts to inspect them. And then after going through the entire army, he comes to this really, like, the warrior who broke the vase, and he comes to him and is like, oh, "You're holding your axe wrong," and then he knocks the axe out of the man's hand. And as the warrior is stooping down and bending over to pick up the axe, Clovis smashed the warrior's head with his own axe, saying that, quote, thus thou didst to the vase at Sissons. So you don't disrespect this guy. And because of like his ultimate demand and his character, it gave him a lot of power. But not only this, but like later down the line, building off of what Clovis did, Charlemagne also consolidated even more political power by being crowned successor of the Roman Empire. And Clovis, when he was still alive, was made consul and set up his power base in Paris, permanently making it so that it is impossible for the Eastern Roman Empire to take over Western Europe. So, while Clovis's baptism is mostly seen as the foundational moment of France, it was also a monumental turning point in favor of the Roman Catholic Church. It led to the first mass conversion of Catholic Christianity among the barbarians. Secondly, it gave the Roman Catholic Church a much-needed ally. And finally, it helped to establish a European political counterweight to the Byzantine Empire. Thank you.